Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Kennedy. I am with the Fort Worth Astronomical Society. I'm a board member, and I also have my own YouTube channel, Dark Art Astronomy. Today, we have a very special meeting, which is going to include our feature speaker, Dr. Avi Loeb from the Harvard Physics Department. But before we begin with that, I want to thank Bruce Campbell, the president of the Fort Worth Astronomical Society, Christian Pasensic, who's one of our hardest working members, and he's operating everything behind the scenes for us today, and Bob Circus, a past president who also has made a lot of efforts in making this happen. We are simulcasting this live on the Fort Worth Astronomical Society YouTube, and I would ask, please.
Here just means I can't talk, and I just skip that.
Please mute your microphones whenever
you think
possible.
that's what that means?
Well, that's what I didn't read.
And that way we can avoid some interruptions. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Loeb. Thank you very much, Dr. Loeb. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you very much for hosting me virtually. There are lots of things happening. In fact, the most exciting development is from just a few minutes ago, and I will share it with all of you because I just posted it on medium.com. That's where I post essays every day or two. So let me share the screen so you can see it. I hope you can see now my screen. Before I start with my presentation, which by the way will take about 25 minutes, and then after that we'll take a break of 5 to 10 minutes and collect questions, and I will come back to answer those questions. But the development is from today. You see this letter from the US Congress. It originates from Representative Anna Paulina Luna to the current administrator of NASA. And to explain the context, I have to say a few words about 3i Atlas. If you want to find more information there, you can get it on my medium.com website. You see Avi Loeb at medium.com. This is the latest, just from an hour ago, the latest post that I put there. But you can find 21 of them from the last few weeks. And in addition to the 4 scientific papers that I wrote on 3i Atlas. So let me just say a few words about 3i Atlas because it's really exciting. Astronomers and the Minor Planet Center catalog it as of now as a comet. You know, just because that's what we are used to in the solar system, either an asteroid or a comet. And then it turns out that this object has some anomalies. It's really unusual in the sense that it has a trajectory which is aligned with the orbit of the Earth around the Sun to within 5 degrees. And as a result, it arrives actually into the inner solar system and passes very close to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. If you change the arrival time, you find that there is a chance of 1 in 20,000 for it to arrive so close to the inner planets. So the timing of the arrival is fine-tuned. The trajectory is fine-tuned to be in that plane of the planets. And the chance of that happening at random is 0.2%. And so altogether, the trajectory is very unusual. The other thing is, you would expect a comet to change its brightness periodically because it spins, but there is no evidence for that for this one. There is no evidence for any atoms or molecules, any spectral signatures of them from a surrounding cloud of gas. And moreover, if you look at the images, there seems to be a glow in front of the object. So as it moves, rather than having a tail that is lagging behind the object because it's pushed back by the solar wind, in this case, there is a glow preceding the object. And one simple way to understand that, which I only thought about 2 hours ago, so this is work in progress, is that it's not spinning. This object is not spinning. And there is a day side and a night side. And the day side is facing the sun, and there might be ices on the surface of the object that get evaporated by the sun. And they result in a glow of material that is the vapor coming from the surface in front of the object, because that's facing the sun. The object moves now towards the sun. At any event, in that case, the object has to be as big as 10 to 20 kilometers. That's up to twice larger than the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It's huge. And that means that it just cannot be produced. There is not enough rocky material in interstellar space to give us an object that big every decade. You know, we've done the survey for interstellar object for 1 decade. We found this one 20 kilometers. That's too much rock. There is not enough rocky material to give us so much at a rate of once per decade. There might be enough to give us such an object at a rate of once per 10,000 years. But we didn't wait 10,000 years. So what could give us such a big object? Well, if its trajectory was selected, if it's fine-tuned to come to the inner solar system, it's not coming at random from random, but it actually was programmed to get to the inner solar system. Maybe it's technological. Is it alien technology? That's the fundamental question. And I wrote a paper about that. I wrote another paper that says we can actually check it out, because there is a probe right now near Jupiter. It's called Juno. It's a spacecraft that was launched in 2011, was supposed to end its mission in September this year, 2025. So the team of Juno was planning to give it a push into Jupiter so that it will burn up and turn into ashes in September, in just a couple of months, less than that. I wrote in the paper that I'm suggesting to give it a push in the other direction, away from Jupiter, because if we give it a push of 2.6 kilometers per second in the right direction, it will actually intercept 3I Atlas when this interstellar object gets very close to Jupiter. As I said, it's getting unusually close to Jupiter. So there is a chance of an intercept. And the question is how much fuel is left, and that's something that NASA can check. So on Tuesday, I had a phone call from Representative Anna Paulina Luna. She wanted to know more about the 3I Atlas. And I told her, look, there is this spacecraft Juno. Let's convince NASA to do it. And she wrote this letter today. And it's now, it was just posted on X by her 2 hours ago. And I posted it in my medium.com posting. And you can read it after my presentation. But it's exciting because if NASA does it, that will excite the public. We will use a mission that was doomed to die, and we are using it just at the last moment, and it's just the right time. And this is, a scenario that could have been borrowed from a script for a Stanley Kubrick film, like 2001 Odyssey. It's just amazing that this opportunity exists, and we can learn much more about the 3I Atlas. So I will obviously be glad to answer any questions about this object because it's happening now. But in my talk, I'll refer to previous work that I did, and I'll try to be as brief as possible so that you will have time for questions. So let me get rid of this letter that you can read afterwards and get to my talk. Okay, so this is a cover of a New York Times magazine article that came out about 2 years ago. And they asked, why did I become interested in this subject? And the answer is just because there was intriguing data on the first interstellar objects that came from other stars. And that data was only collected over the past 8 years. And if you look at the Milky Way galaxy, it has of order 100 billion stars like the sun. So we see a lot of houses in our cosmic street that look just like ours, because billions of them, at least billions of them, have an Earth-sized planet roughly at the same separation. Now, my colleagues would argue, okay, there are all these houses that are analogs of the Earth-Sun system, but probably they don't have residents. And I say, don't be so presumptuous. In fact, without doing the search, we will not find anything. And Enrico Fermi had lunch in Los Alamos in 1950, and they were talking about extraterrestrials. He asked, "Where is everybody?" And this is a question that every lonely person asks. And what you tell a lonely person is, don't think so highly about yourself. You're not that attractive. Your partner will not come to you. You need to at least look through the windows of your home and search for neighbors. And Enrico Fermi didn't build a telescope. He just asked this question. I'm disappointed of Enrico because he was an experimental physicist and he didn't follow the method of science here. He just asked a question, and people keep repeating this question again and again. Now, one possibility in relation to Three-Eye Atlas is the answer to this question is the dark forest hypothesis, meaning there are lots of aliens out there, but they are careful not to make a sound. We will not detect them, but they are listening to us, and we've been broadcasting radio broadcasts for a century or so. And so once they realize that we pose a threat to them, I mean, they are silent because they're worried about predators, but if they see a young civilization, technological civilization like ours, that is becoming more and more powerful, at some point they might visit us. So that's one answer to Fermi's question. And maybe Three-Eye Atlas, is of this nature. Who knows? Now, my colleagues, and you have to understand, I always have to to face this pushback from colleagues, which I find really frustrating because, science, in my view, science is about asking questions, and there shouldn't be any censorship on the questions you ask. And then the second part of science is answering these questions based on evidence, based on data. So you need to collect data in order to answer questions. You can't just sit on your chair and say, I think the answer is this and that, and case closed. It's an extraordinary claim, forget about it, we should not get any data about it, which is pretty much the situation of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence since 1993. And I say this is not an extraordinary claim that something like us existed. First, because we are not that exceptional. If you read the news every day, you will be disappointed. We're not that intelligent. But moreover, there are so many Earth-Sun systems out there that it's an ordinary claim. An ordinary claim requires ordinary evidence. But without seeking the evidence, we will never find the answer. Now, my colleagues, once again, I keep referring to them, but they're really obsessed with microbes. So right now in astrobiology, the plan of the astronomy community is to invest more than $10 billion in building the next observatory in space within 2 decades. And that observatory will be looking for the molecular fingerprints of microbes in about 25 exoplanets, habitable planets. Is this the best use of $10 billion, or should we hedge our bets? Because if we find oxygen or methane in the atmospheres of exoplanets, it may not necessarily mean that there is life there, because you can make these molecules by geological processes. But if we find a gadget or some other techno-signature that could not have been produced by nature, it would be a conclusive evidence not only that there is life, but that there is intelligent life that we can learn from. Frankly, I find microbes boring because I can't learn too much from them. They're not that smart. I would much rather find a smarter kid on our block that will bring us to a better place. It will be a role model better than our politicians. And one way to think about encountering extraterrestrials is, it's the modern incarnation of the messianic age, where humanity will be brought to a better place because there would be a visitor from elsewhere, like many religions argue. And new knowledge does not fall into our lap. It's not like we will think about it and figure it out. And I actually, after the election, Peter Thiel said about Elon Musk that nobody should bet against Elon Musk because he predicted the outcome of the election back then. And the following day, I placed a bet against Elon Musk because he said that we are probably alone, and that's why we should go to Mars to make humanity a multi-planet civilization. But I said, your statement, we're probably alone, is incorrect. I mean, how do you know? I'm willing to bet 1% of my net worth against 1% of Elon's net worth, and we'll put the money in a pool and do the search. Now, he never came back to me about it, but I'm still hopeful. The other thing that is happening in the background is that the Director of National Intelligence submitted 3 reports to the US Congress in recent years, saying that there are objects in the sky that they cannot identify. Now, if you think about it, this is like an amazing admission in the fact that the intelligence agencies are incompetent. They admit that they cannot do their job. I mean, we're putting $1 trillion in the next defense budget for 2026, $1 trillion. And yet there are objects in the sky that they cannot identify. There was the Chinese spy balloon that was shut down after some citizens noticed it. So is there anything extraterrestrial among these unidentified objects? That was the question that came to my mind. Now, the Congress established an office called the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office in the Pentagon. And I visited that office before I gave a briefing in Congress on May 1st this year. And I asked them, did you see anything? Did you find anything that is not human-made among the reports? And they said no, except for a few FBI reports. So, I decided to establish the Galileo Project that I'm leading just after the first report from the Director of National Intelligence. And the idea is, astronomers are looking at the sky all the time. We would like to build an observatory that monitors objects in the sky that move overhead. Now, most astronomical observatories are focusing on a small part of the sky, and they ignore objects flying overhead. And my idea was to look at the entire sky at all times and analyze the data with machine learning software. So we have one observatory that is currently getting data at Harvard University. That was the first one that we established in the infrared, optical, radio, and audio. And we analyze the data with machine learning software that is trained on familiar objects to see if there are any outliers. And we are currently building 2 additional observatories, one in Pennsylvania and another one in Nevada. And by the end of the summer, I was, helping the team build it up in Nevada just a few weeks ago. And by the end of the summer, we hope to have 3 observatories that collect data on a few million objects a year. That will be the biggest data set. And any human-made objects are boring as far as I'm concerned. So we are just looking for anything that might be extraterrestrial. I will skip this one. It's just that we don't have the time. I hope I can skip. Oh, no. So let me see. Let me move to the next slide. Okay, these are images from one of the new observatories, but I don't have time to get into it. Now, the new frontier of interstellar objects is what I would like to dedicate the remaining minutes. The first one was an interstellar meteor detected by US government satellites in 2014. After that, in 2017. So this one was roughly an object 0.5 meter in size that collided with Earth. It appeared as a meteor, but was moving extremely fast so that it was not bound to the solar system by the sun's gravity because of its high speed. Then in 2017, there was an object the size of a football field discovered, and it was quite anomalous. It was given the name Oumuamua, which means in the Hawaiian language, a scout. And this one was most likely flat because the amount of sunlight reflected from it changed by a factor of 10 as it was tumbling every 8 hours. And moreover, it was pushed away from the sun by some mysterious force without showing any cometary evaporation. So I suggested it's the reflection of sunlight that is pushing it. And indeed, 3 years later, the same telescope in Hawaii discovered another object that was pushed by reflecting sunlight. And that one was a rocket booster from a 1966 launch by NASA. So the question is, who produced Oumuamua? And there was a comet discovered in 2019, definitely natural. And finally, as I mentioned, July 1st, 2025, that's when the 3I Atlas object was discovered. Whether it's a comet or something else is to be found in the coming months. We shall see. But Oumuamua gave me the first trigger for my interest in this subject, because there was no cometary tail. And the comet experts argue, well, there is a tail, but you can't see it. And that reminds me of the story of Hans Christian Andersen, the emperor has no clothes. I'm the kid in this story, and my colleagues are the adults in the room. And the fundamental question is whether it was a technological object or a rock. And we know that there is plenty of space trash that we produce. For example, on January 2nd, the Minor Planet Center announced a new asteroid that came near Earth, and only to find a day later that it was actually moving along the path of the Tesla Roadster car that was launched in 2018 by SpaceX. It was not a rock, it was a car. And my point is that Elon Musk might not be the most accomplished space entrepreneur since the Big Bang. There might be interstellar cars that we will find by monitoring interstellar objects. So the next Copernican revolution might be that we are not alone. Copernicus realized we are not at the physical center of the universe. The next Copernican revolution would be to realize that we are not at the intellectual center of the universe. And most stars from billions of years before the sun, Voyager would take 1 billion years to move to the opposite side of the galaxy. So there could be plenty of objects that made it to our backyard from civilizations that preceded us by a few billion years. Now, another story here is that I went to the Pacific Ocean to look for the materials associated with the interstellar meteor. There will be a Netflix documentary about it that will come out in early 2026. And I will just skip the details here and be glad to answer any questions. These are some photos from the expedition. You will see all the details in the Netflix documentary. We found some materials, and a fraction of them includes chemical composition that is unusual, not found in other solar system materials. So we're still studying those materials, and we hope to make a second expedition to look for bigger pieces of the meteorite. Now, the Rubin Observatory was inaugurated in June this year in Chile. It's an amazing observatory that will find many more interstellar objects every few months. And that's why this is an exciting new frontier. And my recommendation is to check whether any of them might be technological in origin. It's sort of like checking whether among the rocks that arrive to your backyard from the street, there are any tennis balls that were thrown by a neighbor. And this Rubin Observatory has a camera with 3.2 gigapixels, about 1,000 times more than the number of pixels on your cell phone camera. So it's an amazing observatory that already gave some initial results, but it was scooped by the Atlas telescope that is only 0.5 meter in size. This one is 8.4 meter in size, and they are neighbors. They are both in Chile, and just at when Rubin was inaugurated, the Atlas discovered 3I Atlas. So I will be glad to address any questions you have. Please send them, and we will take about a 5 to 10 minute break, and I'll come back to answer the questions. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in about 5 to 10 minutes to answer your questions. That should be the most interesting part of our dialogue as far as I'm concerned. So see you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Loeb. We'll look forward to having you back in just a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, for club members who joined the Zoom channel, I think what we're going to do now is ask you to, if you have a question for Dr. Loeb, please go ahead and unmute your microphone, and I'll make some notes on who those people are, and I'm going to try to do my best to organize this so that one by one, I'll call your name, you ask your question, he'll answer, then we'll go to the next one to try to keep this as organized as possible. So Sam Morehouse, I am sure you have a question, right?
Not really, although I have had the belief since a childhood, there is just no way that there's that many stars, that many planets out there in the solar system, and we have the audacity to think we're the only ones in the universe.
All right. Does anybody have any specific questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and let me know if you've got a question. I have several I can ask him, but I'd like this to be more about club members and more inclusive in that regard. Let's see. Surely Chris Ashford on the line. Surely Chris has a question. I'll bet he does.
Well, my question is about the funding, and
Well, fantastic.
It's really not. It's about the funding. Who gets what funding, and who believes whom when it comes to distributing funding, and what science projects get the go-ahead or not. But it's encouraging that NASA is going to divert Juno, so that's good. But the quite real question then is, well, what is the funding for his project? And when does he think, well, when does he think it's going to be fully operational? Because I just looked it up on the internet here. So they got a long way to go, I think.
All right, well, good question. Follow the money. They're not going to be able to do anything without that funding.
Right.
So anyone else have some questions? Christian, go ahead. All right. Actually, I think you're going to find out that he does have a contingency plan. Well, actually, he's recommended a contingency plan, but no one seems to be paying attention to it. So good question. I'll let him go through that process of answering that. Anybody else?
Stephen, this is Bruce Campbell.
Hey, Bruce.
And so my question has to do with life-based scenarios besides organic life-based, what other life-based systems are available or theorized?
Fantastic. I'll put you on the list. Anyone else? I was thinking maybe Natalie Bruce would have a question, but perhaps not.
Nope.
Okay. A quick note from Natalie. All right. If there's nothing else, then I will, I've got a series of questions that I will ask him at the end. I think I'll go ahead and I'll start with Bruce's question first, Christian's question second, and Chris Ashford's question third. And then Sam had a comment. Do you want to make that comment, Sam, or save it?
No,
No?
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I believe most of us that delve into this hobby or profession or whatever would think the same thing. That otherwise, why would so many be searching?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't believe that there are any aliens. I think we're alone in the universe. That's just my opinion. But
Yeah,
I'm
that's fine. I heard a theory a long time ago, which is probably just as one perceived, and that was that what we're seeing as far as alien observance aren't really aliens. They're us time traveling back into the future to study today's time. And the reason that that's really popular is it means we made it. We didn't blow ourselves up.
well, I really hope you're right about that one, Sam. That would actually really make my day to find that out.
I like
But yeah, I'm a skeptic. But the problem I have, even though I'm a skeptic,
right.
is that what I don't like seeing is how people with a contrary view from the majority are treated. And in some ways, they're bullied because their viewpoint doesn't conform with the larger number of people. And therefore, people like Dr. Loeb tend to be attacked from other sources in a way that's not professional. And I feel that's just wrong. We should encourage disagreement. We should encourage intelligent discourse about something so that we can come to a conclusion that's reasoned. But if we completely shut down people who have a different viewpoint, I think we're definitely doing ourselves a disservice. And who knows what this new object may be. A atlas could be just about anything. And
Well, we're humans, and I think the concept of the world is flat, and that's the way it is, will always exist in one form or another.
right.
And kind of what the alien position is right now is that, hey, the world's flat. You're crazy. It's not round. You need to be imprisoned.
Yeah. I believe that the world is round, but I just don't.
I'm making a
Right.
back in 1500s and 1700s. That's what was perceived, and the attitude of some people still exists today. Only today it's other things.
So, well, I think that's the point I'm trying to make. We need to allow people to
Right.
express their opinions. And we should be respectful of those who have different opinions
Right.
and encourage them to actually espouse those opinions so that we have an intelligent discourse. And I think Dr. Loeb has not been given that same level of respect that he probably deserves for his theories, and they tend to be dismissed too easily. I think we should entertain them, discuss them, analyze them, because look, he didn't get to be the head of the Harvard physics department by being a slacker, right? So there's something to say just for that.
And I agree with that.
So, and let's not forget what happened to Galileo, right?
Well, that's
Galileo publishes a paper
Right.
that says the Earth is not the center of the universe. And what happens to Galileo? Well, it wasn't the Spanish Inquisition. People get that confused. It was the Roman Inquisition that questioned him and tried him for heresy, found him guilty, and then when he finally reversed his position, he was allowed to go free, so to speak. But they punished him because he came out with a theory, which we all know now to be correct, that the Earth revolves around the sun, and it's that kind of mentality that I think is not good. And I'm not saying we're doing that, but we're doing something similar to it by chastising people with differing opinions, and we should allow for that.
Stephen, can I add to my question?
Yes.
So I just read that the funding for Galileo is all private funding. And so then the question is, well, where is he at, to use the Texas vernacular, with his funding, and how much money has he got, and what is that going to enable him to build?
Exactly, and that's
How
why
much more money does he need?
That's why I want to put your question third. I want Bruce to ask his question because I think that's pretty incisive. Christian, same. And then following up with the funding, I think that is an excellent way to go. And if he has any time left, I've got some questions for him as well when he returns. Again, I want to thank the Fort Worth Astronomical Society for sponsoring today's event, for allowing us to use the YouTube channel to broadcast this information live, for publicizing the event to the extent possible that was available given our resources, and to create more interest in this topic. As some of you may know, this is not the first time that a scientist has made extraordinary claims. Dr. Levin claimed that his experiments back in the 1970s and 80s on one of our first missions to Mars produced evidence of life on Mars, microbial life. And what NASA did in that situation was NASA accepted the results initially and then rejected them and said that Dr. Levin's experiments did not produce evidence of life. And they had a million different reasons on why they didn't think the two probes that were sent to Mars in different places, why they both failed when they were approved by NASA, funded by NASA, proceeded under Dr. Levin's scientific overview. And then when he releases the results, they initially accept them, and then they say, no, it can't possibly be true. The experiments were failed for reasons A, B, and C. But then over the years, NASA has never taken the steps to repeat the experiment and solve for the problems that they claim made the results of the experiments invalid. And no one has really answered the question, well, why haven't we simply repeated the experiment and solved for the problems that caused NASA to reject the experimental results? Why hasn't NASA repeated the experiment? And this caused a lot of frustration by Dr. Levin and his team, So Dr. Levin, if you don't know this story, it's very interesting. Dr. Levin then assisted the Russian government. They had just converted from the Soviets. They became the new Russian government, and the new Russian government approved a program to repeat Dr. Levin's experiments. Their probe to Mars was armed with an improved version of Dr. Levin's experiments based on Dr. Levin's recommendations. And unfortunately, when the Russians launched, the launch was a failure. I think it's called a RUD, a rapid unplanned disassembly. In other words, it blew up. And so that probe never made it to Mars. So we'll never know. In any event, that was what happened to Dr. Levin. He encountered a lot of hostility from other scientists when he continued to explain and continued to demonstrate that his experiments were accurate and the criticisms were not valid. He received a great deal of pushback and was, today we would use the word canceled, because he disagreed with the dogma of NASA. Now, again, I'm a skeptic. I disbelieve just about everything unless I see it for my own eyes. But I think it's wrong that we treat someone in this way. I feel
Can I ask a question?
strongly we should continue. Go ahead. Somebody's got a question?
Yes, I'm Stephen Johnson. You're talking about repeating the scientist experiments which were done on the Viking probe, I believe.
Right.
Why couldn't you repeat them here on Earth in a vacuum chamber with an appropriate atmosphere duplicating that on Mars and see if you get the same results without having any bacteria involved?
I would love to see that experiment. And
that would be a lot less expensive.
Stephen, I agree completely. But we've got Dr. Loeb back, and I want to yield over to him. Dr. Loeb, we do have a series of questions.
That's
Are
great.
you ready?
By the way, I was waiting for 5 minutes in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. I was so focused on the meeting that I didn't see that. But let's get started with Bruce Campbell, the president of the Fort Worth Astronomical Society. Bruce, go ahead.
Very good. Thank you, Stephen. Dr. Loeb, my question has to do with, well, first of all, thank you for sharing your time with us, especially on a Friday at the end of the work week. I appreciate that very much. My question has to do with life forms. Are organic life-based life forms the only feasible process, or are there other life forms under investigation in outer space?
Yeah, well, our imagination is limited to what we find here on Earth, and that is called life as we know it. And all of it started from the same last universal common ancestor. It's called Luca. And over the past year, Luca, that is the origin of all life on Earth, Luca was dated to 4.2 billion years ago. The Earth formed 4.54 billion years ago. So very soon after the Earth formed, within 300 million years, it cooled enough to allow the chemistry of life. So life was almost immediate. But it's interesting that there is the molecules of life could have two chiralities. They can be oriented clockwise and anti-clockwise, the DNA, the RNA, and all forms of life have one chirality on Earth. So one hypothesis is that the symmetry was broken, and that preferred one chirality. And actually, it would have been very dangerous for us if there was the other chirality, because a virus with the opposite chirality or a bacteria, our body cannot really protect itself against that. So there was a letter sent by experts to Science magazine just about half a year ago, saying that the laboratory experiments on life with the opposite chirality should be banned, because if anything escapes from the experiment, the human body would not be able to protect itself. I mean, we can cope with things that have the same chirality to the molecules of DNA, RNA. So my point is, if you ever encounter an alien, don't shake their hand, because it may have the opposite chirality. Interestingly, there were 120 grams of material retrieved from the asteroid Bennu by a mission called OSIRIS-REx. They brought the materials, and the material was analyzed in laboratories on Earth. That's from an asteroid in the solar system that was, just a piece of a planet, perhaps a protoplanet. And they analyzed it half a year ago, and they found both all the building blocks of life, most of the amino acids that make life, but they found them in both chiralities. And that means that indeed, when you start from scratch, you have both of them, but somehow Earth preferred one. Now, in the solar system, the only other object that has liquids on the surface right now, I mean, Mars started just like Earth, but then it lost its atmosphere and the water evaporated. There were lakes, rivers, oceans on Mars, but not anymore. For 2 billion years, it became just a desert. But there is currently another object with liquids on the surface, and that's called the Titan. It's a moon of Saturn, and it has methane and ethane. It has a temperature of 90 degrees above absolute zero, so that's 1/3 of the Earth's surface temperature. And methane and ethane can be in liquid form at that low temperature. And my wish, if someone ever asks me, where do you want to go in the solar system, I would go to Titan to go fishing there. Because if I find any fish in those liquids, it will be life as we don't know it. It's a different liquid than water. So we don't know if life is possible in other liquids. That's one fundamental question.
In fact,
we don't know.
Earlier this month, or actually in July, we had the head of I believe it's called the Firefly project. Dragonfly.
Yes.
She gave a presentation to us about that exact topic.
Oh, wonderful. So you are well educated.
We are, and but we're still wondering if the funding is going to hold. As of the time she was giving her presentation.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to. I feel strongly about Titan, and if I have a voice in Washington, D.C., I'll try to help them.
Very good.
But just to finish my point, even in water, we don't know if DNA, RNA is the only way that you can make life. There are people trying to do laboratory experiments, but I would say that we just don't know the range of possibilities as of now. So the answer to your question, we don't know.
Very good. The next question is from Christian Pasensik. Christian, go ahead.
Wait, that's not obvious, because the question is what is out there, right? So suppose you decide to find a partner, you say, I'll go on dates and I'll definitely find someone suitable. But anyone that went on blind dates knows that very often you don't find what you want, what you're looking for. So the point is, assuming that life is out there, yes, we will probably find it. The question is, what will be easier to find? Will it be microbes, or will it be intelligent life? I'm of the opinion that we should hedge our bets. We should invest similar amounts of funding to both. At the moment, the astronomy community is in consensus that we should spend all the money, all the federal funding on searching for microbes, and zero federal funding, or nearly zero, to the search for intelligence. And this doesn't sound reasonable to me, because if you ask taxpayers who are supporting science what they care about, they care about The question, are we alone? The search for intelligence out there. And frankly, you know, the reason I'm seeking intelligence in interstellar space is because I don't find it very often in academia.
Well, all right. Thank you, Dr. Levin. I think I would tend to agree based on some of the unfortunate, I'm calling it bullying comments regarding some of your papers and your findings.
Oh, I can give you an example.
Okay.
About 3I Atlas. So I wrote, the first paper I wrote about it was on July 4th. We went for a vacation with my wife, but I had to write this paper, so I submitted it. And I basically said that this object, 3I Atlas, is quite unusual because if it's very big, it must follow a very special trajectory to the inner solar system. And at the end of my paper, I just commented that maybe this trajectory was not random, that it might have been targeting the inner solar system, which is hinting that maybe it's technological. So the editor of the journal, Chris Lintott, a professor from Oxford, said that he will not accept my paper unless I remove the last sentence. And since he has the power, you know, it's just he has the power to reject my paper. I say, okay, I'll take out this sentence. And then as a result of his objection, I decided to write a full paper about this possibility. Okay, that's the type of person I am. So I wrote a full paper after that, titled is 3I Atlas Alien Technology. Now, this paper was posted on the archive online, and it became the most trending item on X. Every second over the past week, since last Friday, every second there was a tweet about it. And many of these were people asking Grok to tell them more about what this paper says. And so anyway, that's the result of this. Now, the New York Post decided to make a feature article about it. So they didn't even speak with me at all. They just reported about the paper the way they wanted to create some sensational news. But the one astronomer that they spoke with is Chris Lintott from Oxford. And he said, this is nonsense on stilts.
Well,
wait, let me finish.
Okay.
It is an insult to everyone who is doing good work on 3I Atlas. Now, just to give you the context, we don't know what most of the matter in the universe is. We call it dark matter. For 40 years, since the time I started doing astrophysics, the popular idea was that the dark matter is made of weakly interacting massive particles that represent supersymmetry and new symmetry in nature. 40 years, we put billions of dollars. That was the view of the mainstream. People like Chris Lintott, obvious, that's the thing. They got prizes, awards, the people who searched got honors. Nothing was found. 40 years. Now the limits exclude the entire parameter space that was considered natural for weakly interacting massive particle. CERN invested $10 billion in the Large Hadron Collider in search for supersymmetry that everyone said must be there. Supersymmetry, of course, and people already assumed supersymmetry in the context of string theory. They said, that's obvious, let's build a castle on this foundation. And supersymmetry was not found. It was not found in the experiment. Now, if mainstream advocates like that had a perfect record of knowing what they're talking about, and by the way, I'm saying on this object that just entered the solar system, we don't have any confidence about its nature, and yet you have these commentators who dismiss alternative ideas just because they feel that they should not be discussed. And as I said at the beginning, questions should not be censored. We should ask all the questions, consider all possibilities, and then find the correct interpretation by collecting new data. That's the way science should be done. And I'm afraid to say that a lot of scientists are anti the scientific method. They know the answer in advance. They want to behave like the adults in the room who tell everyone what the answer is. And frankly, that is one reason why science is considered an occupation of the elite, why a lot of people in the public lost trust in science. It's because of people like Chris Lintott who pretend to know things they don't know and do not
And then they
attend.
bully you by saying you're on stilts. Well, I will say this: you stand on the shoulders of giants, right? You agree with that, but you also have and need to have the ability to express a differing opinion.
Of course.
So
I mean,
that
but by the
you
way,
and yours, yeah, go ahead.
it was not. It obviously doesn't happen just to me that there is this pushback. I'm completely resilient. I have tenure. I've been chair of the astronomy department at Harvard for 9 years. I've chaired the board on physics and astronomy of the national academies. You know, I'm part of the establishment. It's not as if I'm a person from the street that is making some crazy claims. I'm just following the path that science is supposed to follow. That was what I hoped for when I became a scientist at a young age. I was hoping we can be all open-minded and consider possibilities until proven wrong. You know, like that's the basis, that's the foundation of science. And think about what happened during COVID-19 when some scientists said, well, there is a laboratory in Wuhan that studied the gain of function experiments in SARS viruses, and this one could have leaked from that. Like, that was considered a racist statement. These people were canceled. And I'm asking, why would that be considered? I mean, either it came from a lab or not from a lab. That's a fact. And it's a scientific conjecture that can be tested. And nowadays, there are many more people that believe that actually it came from a lab. But that is not the issue. The issue is not what happens to be the correct answer. The issue is the method by which you decide. It's not by attacking anyone that suggests something different, but by collecting the data, the evidence, agnostically. And you know, whether the virus came from a lab or not, it's a matter of fact. It's not a matter of debate and opinions. You know, I'm trying to argue that science is better than politics.
And if we followed the scientific method, none of that censorship would ever apply, and people who are bullying scientists for taking
yeah, that's the other thing that I find peculiar. There are all these commentators, they are science popularizers that have a YouTube channel or have some other, and these people who are not practicing science, just check their record. Many of them do not have a single scientific paper over the past decade. They criticize me when I had 9 scientific papers just in the month of July. You know, this month, the past month, I had 9 scientific papers, new ones that I wrote. And I'm a practicing scientist in the trenches. So who are these guys that don't write any scientific papers? They are trying to protect science against whom? Against the scientists who are in the trenches doing the science? How dare they?
That is laughable. But something that's not laughable is Chris Ashford's question. We only have a few minutes left. Chris, go ahead and please present your question.
Yeah, I've now thought of more questions. So, well, I read that your funding is all privately funded. You're not getting any military or federal funding.
No.
So I was wondering where you're at with your funding and what will that enable you to build, and how much more money do you need? Where's the money coming from?
Yeah, so the money comes from people who visit the front porch at my home. They come, they knock on the door and they say, you know, and there were multiple billionaires that visited my home over the past few years, and they were just inspired by the science that I'm doing and willing to give me money. And I didn't, you know, I didn't ask for it. They came out of the blue. And of course, I need more because I got, you know, at the level of maybe 6 million over the past few years. That allows me to do what we are doing with the Galileo Project. But, you know, this program can be done much better. And when I gave a briefing in Congress, I said, you know, if this is a subject, you know, these unidentified anomalous phenomena is a subject that is of national security importance, there should be $1 billion dedicated to bringing the best scientists to look into it. It's not about having instruments that the Department of Defense invests in because as you know from science, it's about the quality of the people that analyze the data and the algorithms that they develop. And in order to attract the best scientists, you really need to put funding. My point is, extraordinary evidence requires extraordinary funding. And for example, we to go to the next expedition, it will cost us $6.5 million, and we need a donation of that magnitude to do that.
Dr. Loeb, is there a place, now I'm not saying we have any billionaires on the line today, but if some people want to make some smaller contributions, where would they go to do that?
So on the Galileo Project website at Harvard University, there is an item there that says support us. And it leads you. Now, if the donation is major, more than $10,000, then anyone is welcome to approach me, and I'll connect you to the relevant administrators that will process the donation. And of course, you could get privileges related to. There is one particular donation that allowed us to establish a new observatory. I cannot speak much about it because it's still not publicly disclosed. But once you find out about it in a few months, you will be really excited about that one.
Well, very good. Dr. Loeb, I see we're coming to the end of our hour. Thank you so much. I would like to invite you back next summer during the summer term when you're not having your classes. I hope you'll come back to the Fort Worth Astronomical Society and join us for another Zoom session where maybe you'll have some new information for us about all kinds of different things. I hope you'll strongly consider returning and giving us another lecture, perhaps during one of our regularly scheduled meetings next summer.
Well, I truly enjoyed the interaction, and you can already get my agreement to come again next summer. So thank you so much for inviting me. It was a great pleasure. And I hope to speak with you again when we have more exciting news.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dr. Loeb. That concludes our broadcast today. Thank you all for joining the Fort Worth Astronomical Society. I'm Stephen Kennedy, and have a wonderful night. Good night.
Thank you.